All right, so let's take a look at this political cartoon. There isn't a whole lot to go on here, but there are some clues that you can sort of piece out if you sort of use your critical thinking. So before we really get into it, let's just look at what the question is, or the questions. What is the most likely time frame this political cartoon was first published? So the first thing you can sort of do is, I mean, it looks pretty old, right? I mean, just the font, and there's like over here, there's like, looks like someone erased it. This doesn't look like a political cartoon from, 2011 or something. This looks like something that's very old. So maybe we can eliminate the Vietnam War. This looks older than the Vietnam War, which is in the 60s, or maybe even World War II, perhaps, which was in the 1940s. So we're left with either A or B. Now, the key to figuring this out, and the key to figuring out the next question in this picture, what does the snake represent? And, the main idea sort of things, is understanding what these letters mean. You have P and M and V, and that's here. There's an N, it's NJ, and then NY and NE. NC and SC. So maybe you've already figured it out, and maybe you haven't. To me, the way to figure like the key is NY, because NY, as anyone who has seen a Yankees hat knows, is New York, and maybe it could mean something else. But if you think if that rings a bell, NY, then everything else sort of starts falling into place. NJ, that's New Jersey. P is Pennsylvania. M, Maryland. V, Virginia. North Carolina. South Carolina. There's no Georgia, which is sort of weird. I think that was a mistake, probably. And then NE, which happens to be New England. Most people have the individual states, but not in this original thing. So you have a serpent or a snake that's in little pieces, and it says join or die. So if these pieces of a snake doesn't come together, then the snake will die. So what does that mean for the time frame? Well, if this is sort of showing you that all of these things are separate, then it's before the United States became a country, before it was united, before it was the United States of America. It was the 13 colonies, which the only thing that could possibly be the right answer here is before the Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War was fought to create a country, to leave England, to no longer be a colony or a bunch of colonies. And the War of 1812 is after that already happened. We were already a country. So we didn't need to join or die after we already joined, once you understand that all of these are parts of the United States. Which actually gives you the answer to the next question. In the picture, what does the snake represent? Well, they're sort of labeled. All of these are labeled, and the whole snake together represents the United States. It doesn't represent the idea of greed or justice or mankind's fall from paradise. The snake from the Bible, the serpent. One thing about this picture, one of the most famous political cartoons that has ever been written, was drawn by Benjamin Franklin. And actually was not to get people excited about joining the Revolutionary War, although it did serve that purpose later on. It was before that. It was for the French and Indian War, which you do not need to know to get this question right. You just need to recognize this is New York, here's a bunch of other states, and the snake represents the United States. So what do you notice? 2 or 3 things you notice in the graphic? Well, you notice that there's a snake with scales. They represent the different colonies. In capital letters, it says join or die. The things I would notice are sort of the metaphoric significance, that the snake represents something. And I would notice that it's very simple. That's another thing I would notice, that this isn't too complicated. Political cartoons over the years get more and more complicated, where things represent other things. But this is very, very simple. Anyone can sort of see, once you understand the key, that what it's trying to argue. And what it's trying to argue, the graphic's main idea, is that unless we come together as a bunch of colonies and become one country, we will not continue to exist. We will die at the hands of England. 2 conclusions you can draw from the graphic. One, maybe that this is a pretty kind of gross idea. It's like chopping up a live snake. So it's using kind of, it's like a pathos argument if we're going to go to the RLA test, where it sort of tries to convince you using emotion, and it uses the word die here, which is like designed to get you really riled up. So that to me tells me that there's like a lot of importance and passion behind this. That's one conclusion I can draw. And two, that like I can also sort of assume that at the time this was made, these colonies were not together, that they were sort of separate, even though they had the shape of a thing that was going to become a thing. At the time, they were not united. They were disunited, which may or may not be a real word. I don't know. Look it up. All right. That's it. That will get you most of the way there. And now you know the famous join or die political cartoon.